Okay, and here we go. Let me just make a little. Welcome, 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 everyone who is joining us. Let me make sure that we are good to go. And we are good to go. Joining us. Never mind that. Okay, here we go. Hey everyone, welcome to Coach Talk. I am so excited to be here this evening with one of my friends. And before I start getting into what my friend has to offer, let me just go ahead and do the important stuff first. Get the little stuff that I say ahead of time out. Welcome to Coach Talk, where we have real conversations for real coaches and leaders. I am Melanie Matthews-Calhoun, your host of Coach Talk. And just to give you a little background of who I am to our new viewers, I am a teacher and educator of 28 years, and I still find it hard to believe to this day that I've been in this for 28 years. Funny how time flies, but it surely flies, especially when you're having fun, right? So, of this 28 years, I've been in a coaching slash consulting slash mentoring position for about 17 of those 28 years. And I've loved every bit of it. Honestly, I have. Is it work? Yes, it's work. But at the end of the day, when you're touching lives and you're making a difference, that's what it's about for me. I do have a platform where you can get some free coaching materials at Coach Academy. So if you will, go take a look at that. All of the links will be in the information. And I am the creator of the Get Engaged Coaching Con, formerly the Mind Your Coaching Institute. And the Get Engaged Coaching Con is for leaders and coaches. And it's all about how to build and improve your capacity as a coach or a leader. And information will be out regarding the new Coaching Con in 2026. So you'll hear more about that later. And before I transition into our guest, just to let you know or remind you, I am the author of the Formula 101 Must-Have Forms for Instructional Coaches, Inside Instructional Coaching, which is a primer for those who are aspiring to be coaches or those new to coaching, and the habit tracker that's called the Productive Coach. So all of those tools I have for you to try to make your coaching life more manageable, easier to navigate, and enjoyable. So without further ado, let me introduce my friend, Mr. Jamal Maxim. He's a friend, most definitely a friend, a mentor, and spiritual coach to leaders. His mission is to ignite leaders to bring change to their assigned area of influence. Jamal is known for his ability to bring strategy, helping those he serves create action steps to accomplish their vision and overcome the challenges of leadership. After studying business leadership, he spent time in the corporate setting where his success continued. Touched by the challenges facing youth, Jamal shifted to education and continued to grow in the ability to develop people. He taught for 9 years, then served as a school principal. As a school leader, Jamal led change, causing struggling schools to turn around and accelerating the progress of others. In addition to running his business, Jamal serves as the executive pastor of Heirs Covenant Church, where he equips people to fulfill their purposes and destiny. Jamal lives in Cincinnati, Ohio, with his wife, where they enjoy laughing and spending time together. We are going to talk about servant leadership. And Jamal, how are you doing today, sir?
I am doing good. And I didn't get to tell you before we started the live, but I'll say it now. So everybody watching and listening can hear me say thank you so much. I appreciate you for having me on your show, on your platform, and just for being such a good friend. It's not like you were someone I didn't know that said, "Hey, come on my podcast," but you truly are a friend. We got to spend time together at a
Yes.
conference last year, and you immediately from the time we met, it was like you didn't meet a stranger. And so which is really awesome. So I really appreciate that. And I was listening to your intro, all the things that you were doing. and the materials that you have for coaches, they need to take advantage of it, because I don't remember resources like that being available my first year of being a principal. I was trying to figure that thing out. And so I was trying to, and luckily, not luckily, I don't believe in luck, but the fortunate thing for me is I was pulling on what I learned from business management, because there was such a gap between the development of leaders in a school setting and the development of leaders in the business setting. And so I feel like I dived in already, but because there's a gap. Because when I went, and my programs were great, my teacher certification program was really great, my principal prep program was really great.
Okay.
The problem is, though most of it focused on the other aspects like curriculum, instruction, I had maybe 1 or 2 classes on budgeting and 1 class on leadership. Just 1.
Wow.
But so the thing I had to wrestle with is, how am I expected to lead effectively when I don't know how to lead people? Because just because I can teach in a classroom and I can be the top rate teacher doesn't mean I know how to translate that into leading other people.
That's right.
And helping them improve. So it was a struggle bus. I had to really pull on the years of business management and that those deep dives into leadership principles, and the books they had me reading, and books I read on my own by people like John Maxwell. Simon Sinek wasn't out yet when I first started, but it was like John Maxwell was the dude. I mean, all his books is what I read, and everybody else who was talking about leadership, who names I don't remember, but I had to deep dive into those things, because it was like, I need to learn how to lead people. Yeah. Leading children is one thing. Leading grown folk who are who we would call content experts, who are experts in their field, who feel like professional development might be a waste of time sometimes, or people who've been doing it 20 years when professional development might be a waste of time for them, depending on what's offering. It's a space that you got to jump into. It is a space.
And you know what that reminds me of, when you said you were in your program and you only had 1 class in leadership. It reminded me of being in my teacher cert program and having no classes on classroom management. So, it's just, and I remember a professor intentionally put together, this is the first time I heard the word compendium. She put together a compendium of articles and resources to help us in her class. And I forget the name of her class, but I just remember compendium. And it was all of the resources that would help us with classroom management. So when you're speaking of that 1 leadership class you had, and now you're expected to go in to be this full-blown effective leader, same as with teaching, not having classroom management classes. And I don't even know if teacher programs have that. And I'm thinking that they should, because it's been ages since I was in my teacher cert program, but they should. But that's about the same thing. And when you're talking about effective leadership and changing people, because sometimes people need that change. How do you do that? How do you do that?
Yeah, I will say, when I went through teacher prep, they had classroom management. So they got a little better. They didn't they didn't put you out there and say, figure it out. But I would tell you, changing people it can be challenging, because first, people have to identify the need to change. And here's the thing, and I say stuff that aren't commonly said, but everybody thinks when it comes to leadership. And which really didn't help me a lot when I was in when I was in public school. It helped a little bit, because my superintendent was like, I love the way you explain stuff. But then when I was saying things that caused her, that wouldn't, that was directed the other way, she was like, wait a minute. And so, because I believe in truth, and when you're leading, you have to lead from a place of truth and stand up for what's right. Because too often politics get into education, and they try to make you choose between administration and teachers. And it's like, and I was in an environment that was very hostile like that, where it was a us against them mentality. And so, but I wasn't with us and I wasn't with them. I was with the students. I was a neither. I'm like, I didn't come here for none of y'all foolishness. I'm here for the kids. And
Oh,
so,
yes.
and so, but when you talk about changing people, that's the long way around to answer your question. Changing people, they have to first recognize a need for change and be willing
Mm-hmm.
to change. And
Mm-hmm.
if you help them recognize it, but they're open to change, then you can help them go through the process
Mm-hmm.
of increasing the skill set in whatever area they need. But if they think they're all that already, then when you point out something that needs to be changed, they're going to resist that change and resist you for pointing it out. I
Mm-hmm.
was at a I was at a school district where it was like that, where every teacher thought they were the best thing. Well, not every teacher. A lot of teachers in the building thought they were the best thing since sliced bread because it was a top school in the district. However, here in
Mm-hmm.
Ohio, we still were not where we should be.
Yeah.
And so I pushed them and said, listen, we're doing great, but we cannot compare ourselves among our sister schools in this district. They are no competition to us. We need to compare ourselves to
Mm-hmm.
every other school that's listed on the state report card.
Mm-hmm.
Where are we in relation to Ohio standards? That's our focus and our goal. And so when I pushed them, a lot of them was like, yes, he's going to challenge us. This is what we need. But some of them were like, no, I'm an excellent rated teacher. And there's
Mm-hmm.
nothing else I need to do. There's
Mm.
nothing I need to change. In fact, my team is jealous of me because they know I'm a better teacher. I'm like, no, and these are the things they actually said. They didn't just think it, they said it. and so I'm like, okay, I'm sorry you think that. However, why would your team be jealous of you?
Mm-hmm.
They're probably not listening to you because you're in pride.
Mm. Mm.
And so teachers like that who resist change, they're the people you have to give them a couple of options in love. You have to keep
Mm.
presenting opportunity for them to change and
Mm-hmm.
and highlighting the need and how it's better for them as well
Mm-hmm.
as better for the students, or you have to give them opportunities to take their talents to another district so that you can put somebody else in there that's better
Mm-hmm.
for the students, because another place might be better for them. Somewhere
Mm-hmm.
else might be like, okay, you the stuff, you don't have to do anything. But when you're in this space, you're going to have to grow. You can't talk about a growth mindset and quote
Yeah.
Carol DeWick all day but then not engage in growing. We're not hypocrites. We're going
And
to
you know what? Here's the thing. So I'm going to say this to you as I say to all administrators, past, present, and future. I take my hats off to you because those are the people who and I don't want to say deal with in a negative way, but those are the people you have to interact with and get them on board to for them to see it's not a you thing, it's a they thing, that the student.
yes,
It's about the
yes.
students, it's not about you. And so how do you kind of decenter them? I heard and I love the opportunities for you to look for another position
Hmm.
somewhere else. You
A
know, you
friend
do
of
have the
mine calls that
opportunity to do that.
a
But
friend of
as
mine
an
calls that the love
administrator,
shove.
it's like, and then if you have more than one, like I've been
Yes.
in buildings, a part of a staff where I just saw the resistance, the unnecessary resistance. I'm gonna say
Hmm.
the unnecessary resistance. Like, what are you do? Why are we here? Why are we here?
Exactly.
This is not about you.
Exactly. And that's the picture you have to keep painting. And I didn't mean to interrupt you, but a friend of
No, you're
mine calls
fine.
that opportunity the love shove. That's
Mm.
that's why I stole that phrase from. I'm like, listen, that's for real. But see, the thing is, and what you're talking about, I lived. I
Mm-hmm.
lived in a place where I had a minority of teachers making the majority of noise because
Mm-hmm.
they wanted to resist.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is, you have to keep painting vision. You have to keep saying this is not about you, because sometimes people who resist change like that, there is
Mm-hmm.
something in them that's there's an issue. There's a
Mm-hmm.
pride issue, a ego issue, a savior complex issue,
Ooh.
or a deficiency that they're trying to hide. And so one, I keep painting vision, and then two, I keep trying to build and establish relationship
Mm-hmm.
under the reality of this. Trust is built and not earned. I'm not trying to
Mm-hmm.
earn your trust. I'm building trust by letting you see my consistency, my compassion, and the
Mm-hmm.
fact that I care about you beyond your job. But if you expect me to jump through hoops and do all of
Mm-hmm.
that to make you like me, then that's the wrong, you got the wrong one.
Yeah.
Because I did that. Been there, done that, wore the t-shirt, burnt the t-shirt. Because I did the Jean Days, the pancake breakfasts, the
Okay.
Christmas celebrations, the hot dog truck, the snow cone truck, the snack carts with
Mm.
chips and pop and cookies and cupcakes like we were back in junior high. Like, you know, I
Mm-hmm.
did all of those things. And they would say thank you. They would take the extra planning times, they would take the breaks, they would take the Jean Day, they would gulp the 7-Ups and do all the things and still didn't like me.
Wow.
And so
Wow.
still badmouth me. And so I recognize I shouldn't be I am not an entertainer.
Mm-hmm.
Even though I wanted to go into the music industry and be an
Yeah, I see your
entertainer.
keyboard.
Yeah. Yeah, but that wasn't the path that was for
Mm-hmm.
me. Even but so I'm not an entertainer. So I'm not gonna be jumping through hoops and dancing around
Mm-hmm.
like trying to get you to do something. And I always have this perspective. I'm gonna build trust in my consistency, and it's your
Mm-hmm.
choice whether to trust me or not.
Mm-hmm.
And then I lead around them. So
Mm-hmm.
they're going to resist, and they're going to do what they're going to try to resist and try to do what they want to do. And then that's the people where your influence has to come to a form of power, where it's like, listen, this is what we're doing, and that's it. You
Mm-hmm.
know, and that's the time. Not that you should lead all the time flexing that way,
Yeah.
but sometimes you have to do it because they're going to keep resisting and
Mm-hmm.
just keep bucking up against what you're doing because they didn't think about it. Now,
Mm-hmm.
some people
Mm-hmm.
get political and try to plant, help them, make them think they thought of an idea, but
Mm-hmm.
I don't have time for that.
Yeah.
While I'm trying to make you think you thought of something, I could have been helping somebody else increase their instructional capacity, their
Ooh.
classroom management, or
Yeah.
dealing with a parent, helping her love the school when she didn't like the school because of something a particular teacher did. I don't
Mm-hmm.
have time for that. And so
Mm-hmm.
I lead around them. Now, eventually, the positive peer pressure will force them to change because they don't want to
Mm-hmm.
be the outlier or
Yes.
force them to leave. Is three things going to happen. They're either going to be forced to change, forced to leave, or they're going to dig in their heels.
Mm-hmm.
One of
Mm-hmm.
those three are going to happen when you lead
Yeah.
around them.
And that's the same philosophy I take about coaching as well. You can't if there's an environment where you have 100% of the teachers on board and open to coaching day one. I would like to see that, number one. And number two,
Right.
sometimes you just have to coach around them. And it doesn't
Yes.
mean that you're ignoring them and don't want to work with them, but sometimes people aren't ready for that. And I know that coaching teachers and leading teachers in an administrative capacity are two different things when you look at what principals are responsible for in terms of school performance and connections with the community and student satisfaction and progress and all of those things. So it's a little different, but it's the same.
Yeah,
But,
absolutely.
and here's one thing that I've noticed that there are different types of leadership styles. And I have been so happy to have been led by a servant leader. And when you have servant leadership, the whole dynamic changes. And,
Yes,
and there are,
absolutely.
again, different styles. Transactional never worked for me. Can't, that's just,
Hmm.
but servant leadership. And I know that you
Yes.
are that person who practices in that realm of leadership.
Absolutely. Because here's the thing, servant leadership is really the essence of every leadership. And every form of leadership.
Hmm.
And one of the things that I've discovered is leadership is not a specific style, but it's an expression.
Ooh.
Because a lot of times people study different leadership styles and they try to find the one that fits them or try to fit themselves into one
Hmm.
they think is what's going to work for them.
Hmm.
But leadership is an expression of who you are before it's anything else. Now,
Mm.
of course, there's a science behind leadership and the research, but science is just a place of discovery.
Mm-hmm.
So the science of leadership is them discovering what behaviors people have demonstrated that causes people to increase their
Mm-hmm.
ability and willingness to follow someone else. And so servant leadership is basically the model of allowing yourself to position yourself, not
Mm-hmm.
saying to help people know that you are there supporting them. And it is different than common sense
Ooh.
leadership. What some people say servant leadership is giving the people what they want and what they need. No, that's common sense. Who is leading somebody and doesn't give them what they need? Now, you don't always give them what they want because what they want might not
Mm.
fit what's needed for the scenario.
Mm-hmm.
Because, and I tell teachers that all the time, I'm going to give you what you need and I'm going to try to give you what you want. But if what you want contradicts with what's best for the students, guess who's going to have to take the L?
Mm-hmm.
You, because you chose to be here as the grown up. I know I talk very plain. I hope your listeners are okay. You're like, you chose to be here as the grown folk who
Mm-hmm.
applied for the position. The kids had no choice of being here.
Mm.
They could not choose their teachers.
That's right.
And so my job is to make sure, because they didn't have a choice, my job is to make sure that everybody whom they get is doing what they're supposed to do. And so basically, a lot of people misunderstand servant leadership.
Mm-hmm.
They think servant leadership equates with what I call soft serve leadership, where you're
Mm-hmm.
just so lovey dovey and you can't tell nobody the truth and you can't have
Mm.
a conversation that has to be corrective in nature. You can't, accountability is almost like a cuss word.
Mm-hmm.
It's like you can't, and that's not servant leadership. That's soft serve leadership, where
Mm.
you are afraid for people to get mad at you, or you're trying to be everybody's friend, and
Mm-hmm.
you overuse accolades to make them think that they are in a space they're not. That's actually dishonest. If you tell a teacher, all the time, the best PD is down the hall, because I hadn't had an assistant that used to do that. And I
Mm-hmm.
loved his heart and I knew he had a heart for the teachers. But if you tell them that all the time, then
Mm-hmm.
they're going to think there's no room to grow.
Yes.
So there needs to be rephrasing. Like, listen, we have great PD down the hall, which is true, because
Mm-hmm.
we're going to leverage your expertise. Now, saying you're the best, no, because I don't
Mm-hmm.
want you in your head thinking that you don't have room to grow and
Mm-hmm.
that we can't help you go to the next level in teaching.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's totally different. And there are specific behaviors to servant leadership that the research identifies. And I'm about to tell you what they are in a second.
Write these down, people. Write them down and go.
Yeah, I'm about to tell you what they are in a second. And I'm an old schooler. I'm gonna pull it right from a textbook.
There
Because
you
I
go.
because I teach adjunct this class called Leadership of Teams, and I teach this every week. I mean, every time.
Mm-hmm.
I talk. There's a whole thing I do on servant leadership, and so here's the first characteristic: listening. And this is found by the research. See, let me say one more thing. When people think about servant leadership, they try to define it based on what they think a servant leader is.
Mm-hmm.
Some people judge leadership and define leadership by leadership they've experienced.
Mm.
If they experienced a good leader, they would say that's the ideal
Yes.
leadership model. If they experienced a not so good leader, they will say that's not, but what's ideal as a leader is what they desire to see that they didn't see. And
Mm.
sometimes people perspective and desires on what leaders should or shouldn't do isn't actually accurate with what leadership really is.
Oh, okay.
So
Break it down.
yeah, because sometimes people will judge you based on what they think a leader is and shouldn't do, but that's not really what leadership is.
Yeah.
And so you have to help them see something different.
Mm-hmm. And they, like you said, come with this preconceived notion or perception of what they think good leadership is and what leadership ought to do and ought not to do, especially when it comes to instruction and how to
Mm-hmm.
improve student achievement. Sometimes some teachers, not every teacher, but some teachers are like what you're saying. Okay, I'm doing it. I'm the PD down the hall that keeps being referenced. That's me. I know everything, so I'm not going to come to any PD days when we have PD days because I know it all. I've seen it and I heard
Mm-hmm.
it before. Those people are not lifelong learners, and everybody who knows me knows that just about everywhere you go or see me, I'm going to say I'm a lifelong learner. In fact, when I was posting about this podcast, I said, I cannot wait to learn what Jamal has in store for us today. I am a lifelong learner, and some people are not that, but all educators need to be. And that's just
Yes.
my stance. Stand 10 toes down on that. If you are in education and you don't believe that there is not room for you to grow, then I don't think that this is the field you should be in.
Right.
That's just
Facts.
me.
Facts. And I would say you are, because I at the conference I saw you in people's sessions, even though you
Mm-hmm.
were a presenter, you were attending sessions and taking notes.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's the key. We have to remain teachable. And
Mm-hmm.
I know it can be challenging for people like you've been doing this for 20 something years. So
Mm-hmm.
for people who've been doing it for 20 years, 30 years, and unfortunately education practices are still like 20, 30 years behind, sometimes it's like, listen, I don't need you to tell me how to do think, pair, share one more time. You know what I'm saying? I get it. Which is why coaches and leaders have to identify,
Mm-hmm.
what does this teacher need? And
Mm-hmm.
if the PD I'm going to give doesn't fit their need, why am I going to require them to be a part of it?
Mm. Mm-hmm.
Why am I going to waste their time? If other teachers need it and they don't, I can excuse them and give it to
Yes.
the people that need it.
Yep.
We differentiate instruction for kids all the time.
Why not for adults?
But when we don't do it for adults, we get that group in the back that's sitting there checking their email and
Yeah.
grading papers, acting like they're taking notes.
Yes. Yeah, just recently, actually back in March, where I work, we had a PD day. And I cannot take credit for the PD that was planned because I conducted the PD a week after I was hired.
Ooh,
So
we.
a lot of it was already planned. But here's the thing, it was PD that was applicable for everyone. And
That's good.
everybody in that PD, from the general education teacher to the gym teacher to the resource room teacher to the specials teachers,
Yeah.
they all got something from that PD. And so
Yes.
when you are, and I know that there are requirements, especially if you're working in special ed, you have these compliance pieces you must do every year. I know that those exist, but we also have to make sure that when we are creating and thinking about PD for the whole staff, that is applicable to everyone. And if you
Yes.
are a person who really is crafty in designing PD, you'll make that happen and still meet individual subject area needs. That's
Mm-hmm.
when because you have to be able to, like you said, you have veteran teachers, you have teachers who have just started, you have those veteran teachers who have heard it all before and they're hearing it again, and you have the new teachers who have not heard anything before. How do you marry those in one
Yes.
setting? And so I think it's up to the leadership in the school. And when I say leadership, I'm talking not only to administrators, but also to coaches or whoever else is in that leadership capacity. What can you do to design PD days that will be beneficial for your whole staff? And it can be
Yes.
done. So I know we
Absolutely.
got off. Yeah, but yeah.
It
Mm-hmm.
absolutely can. And if you can't think of nothing that can take care of the whole staff, then do them in rotations. Look, this group, we're gonna talk
Mm-hmm.
about this. This group, we're gonna talk about that.
Mm-hmm.
This group, if you can't figure out nothing, we not talking at all. We analyze the data. We gonna
That's right.
analyze data and we gonna make a plan.
Mm-hmm.
Because some stuff, I mean, yeah, because yeah, I think sometimes some folks like to talk about education just for the sake of talking about education
Ooh.
versus being actually doing the educating. I call
Ooh.
that the endless discussion loops. We're gonna talk 1,000 times about the school improvement plan. We're gonna look at the same piece of data 1,000 times. It's like, okay, when are we gonna stop talking about it and actually be about it? When are we gonna
Act.
implement? When are we gonna implement the plan? And when are we
Mm-hmm.
gonna give the plan time to work? Because here's the thing that I learned recently: when people and I said this, when did I say this on a podcast recently? And I just thought, it just came to me
Mm-hmm.
not too long ago. And I'm like, yes, why didn't I think of this before? It's like when it's a false sense of progress when
Mm-hmm.
people have meetings, collect data, and analyze the data, make a plan,
Mm-hmm.
and never give themselves time for the plan to actually work.
Mm.
When
Mm-hmm.
they cut down the time for the implementation and they're doing more talking than implementing, it gives a false sense of progress because and they're deceiving themselves because they're thinking things are moving forward because we're talking about it and we're gathering data. They didn't give time for it to work. You progress monitoring every week and you're just gathering data and you're not giving your intervention time, your academic intervention time to work. If they didn't get it during normal instruction, and then we know time and instruction causes mastery, why are you going to cut away the extra time from instruction to analyze that data every Friday when you could just do that bi-weekly? And I remember saying that, having that argument with a curriculum director, and she said, well, if we wait every 2 weeks, our response to the actual data will be slow. Well, you would need to respond to the data less if you give the more time for mastery that the evidence-based and research-based says we should. Of course, we like to change that phrase every now and then. It's not research-based, it has to be evidence-based, and somebody's going to name it something different in 2 years
from now. This is a lot. You talking. Let me be quiet because go ahead.
So I'm just saying, so we get into this place of deception, thinking we're progressing when we're not, which is why every year we're still talking about the same thing. And so to really move a school forward, you got to give time for the actual academic intervention to work.
I know in the last 3 districts that I've worked in within 5 years, believe it or not, this was the core of the meetings is tier 1 and tier 2 instruction. How to improve tier 1, that quality instruction, and use tier 2 instruction for those students who actually need tier 2 instruction. Because what we've seen in so many cases is that those teachers, and of course, we're not talking about all the teachers, but those teachers who in tier 1, the kid can be like, let's say on a Dibbles assessment, 1 point from benchmark, and then they want to send them to intervention. When in your quality tier 1 instruction, and especially if you have instructional groupings, and let's not get it twisted, we can have stations through middle school, high school, really, through high school.
Absolutely.
So how is it that you, as the certified professional in the room, you were certified to handle this? You want to push all of the students who might be an inkling in the deficit area, you want to push them all to tier 2. Quality tier 1 instruction, 80% of your students should be in tier 1 instruction quality. We don't intervene until teachers have done what they could do. We have relied so heavily on support, on paras taking kids out, on academic interventionists taking kids out. But teachers have to remember, you are the number 1 responder to intervention in that tier 1 space. And so it's really hard to communicate that. I don't want to say why or why not, but it's hard to communicate that. And some teachers really have a difficult time with owning that quality tier 1 instruction.
Here's the thing, because I know we got to get back to the other thing, but let's talk about this academic intervention, because there's a couple of things that I noticed with that. One, a teacher under tier 1 instruction can do academic intervention if they see they have some students struggling with the concepts. Of course, they tell us and they teach us you're supposed to reteach. But if the majority of the class mastered it, except for a small group, you don't have to do a total reteach. You can do just like a building-wide academic intervention does. You can say, okay, this group over here, I'm going to work on you with this skill where you need help because all of you need help with the same skill. The other ones, I'm going to help you with this other skill. So the same academic intervention setup that we often do building-wide in elementary land can be done within the classroom itself.
Mm-hmm.
And so, of course, most of my career was elementary. So I walked in like, listen, we're going to have a building wide our academic intervention block where everybody doing some rotating, and we're going to divide them by skill deficit, and we're going to pump them up. You know, it's like working out, but they say we're going to pump you up. That's and so that's what we did, because those were the schools I needed that I went in. That's what they needed. But again, you can do something similar within your normal instruction. That's what stations and all of that really come into play when you have them grouped by ability. And it's like, listen, here we go. We're gonna hit this hard, and we're gonna get you where you need to be. Now, the funny thing is, because my last school year, before I launched out in my business, I was at a high school. They had zero academic intervention. This particular high school, they didn't do nothing except for offer after school tutoring.
Ooh.
Now, this is in the urban area, and most of those kids after school, one, they were tired of seeing the teachers, so they were ready to go. And then two, half of them had to go to the elementary school to pick up their siblings, so they couldn't stay, even if they wanted to. And then the other half had jobs. So you got some that's going to go work at McDonald's. And then you had the other ones had to pick up siblings. And then you had a group that was just like, listen, I'm ready to get out this building. So I remember asking some of the teachers, what do you do for intervention? And a lot of them said that's what after school tutoring is for. Because all of them, there were a lot of them that wanted to take this college professor attitude where I'm getting them ready for the real world. How are you getting them ready when they're not mastering the content? So you being mean and under the guise of being tough is getting them ready for college and higher education? Like, no. The best way to get them ready is to help them master this content. So when they get to college, they're not behind because they had a teacher like you that didn't want to help them master what they were supposed to master. And so academic intervention is necessary. Then one teacher told me, well, we only have a 60-minute block before they have to rotate. Okay, then break them up in your 60 minutes and do what you're supposed to do. And so this thing that you're talking about intervention is necessary to happen at tier 1, but it also, depending on the district, is necessary at tier 2. And it depends on how you do it. Because I found, one, it was culture shock between elementary land and high school. Two, I found best practices in elementary school kind of fell by the wayside in high school, not because they weren't applicable, but because the teachers didn't apply them. There's a difference between something being not applicable and the teachers just not doing it because they think these kids are too old for that.
Yeah, and I saw that a lot because I worked K-12 in different capacities. And I could just see the gradual release of engagement, the gradual release of small groups.
Yes.
You know, the K2 space, you'll find a couple of teachers still aren't comfortable with that small group instruction, having stations, but you saw it more. But the higher you went, the more it disappeared. And working with secondary teachers, it was almost like speaking a foreign language when I mentioned small group instruction or where's your group? At least have your group. Where's your independent group? And and they were like, that's for elementary. And so it's you know, it hurt my heart. Because so many opportunities were missed. To get these kids. So many missed opportunities. And it makes me question again, you know, why are you here? You have to be here for the kids. I'm not saying that you are never here for you, because you have to have some kind of happiness in this too. But we are here for the kids.
Somebody
and
else.
The way that you're teaching is beneficial for you and you only,
then you're not here to serve. See, servant leadership goes back to how you teach, because teachers are leaders in the classroom. And sometimes teachers think they try to exercise power in the classroom. Oh, I told you to do this. You didn't do it. Go to the office. Or in high school, I'm gonna call administration to come get you. You know, but teaching is leading. You're influencing people to have the desire to learn. And
Mm-hmm.
even if they don't have the desire to learn, you're influencing them to learn anyway without the desire.
Mm-hmm.
And so what you're saying is so true, because in high school, I feel like what the experience I had is I felt like they missed opportunity to connect, and they missed opportunities to increase the graduation rate.
Mm-hmm.
They're worrying about the graduation rate and what their ranking is going to be with the state, and trying to get counselors to do certain things. It's like, listen, you wouldn't need counselors to counsel as much if you would take opportunity to use some of these teaching strategies that you think are babyish, but actually can be effective to help them learn. If they can't stay
Mm-hmm.
after school, why wouldn't you take 30 minutes out of your 60-minute block, or 20 minutes out of your
Mm-hmm.
60-minute block, and do some type of academic intervention, and split
Mm-hmm.
them into ability groups?
Mm-hmm. And what that would
So,
do is take a shift in planning.
yes.
So instead of just having one plan for all the students, like throwing a bowling ball down the alley and hoping that all the pins fall, you just you make one plan and it's not beneficial to the class. Like you will have that takes a little bit more planning. And
Mm-hmm.
what I tend to see with secondary teachers, because they're content based, is that they have the same
Mm-hmm.
plans year after year.
Every
And
year.
so it
Every
takes
year. Mm-hmm.
redesigning what you've
Yes.
already done to accommodate the students in the class. I've coached secondary teachers. I've created instructional groups based on data and gave them, depending on the tool that you're using. Like if you're using iReady, and they have instructional grouping settings, reports, and they have materials to go with it. So it's not really difficult to do. It's just the translation between taking this information that we have, that we know where to target students when we have them in
Yes.
small groups, and making your plan, creating a plan to reflect that. But I've seen so many times how, and I'm secondary teachers, I'm not bashing you. I'm just telling you what I've seen in most
Yeah.
cases. And that's the same plan year after year. So when you have information that can show you how to instruct these students based on the skills deficits that they have, and you don't take that opportunity to do it because you have your notes already planned from previous years, who are you
Mm-hmm.
really serving? Are you serving the
Yes.
students, or are you serving yourself?
Yes. And while you were saying that, I just wrote the note. You can't recycle your lesson plans.
Mm,
Even though we do it, especially
mm-hmm,
when we teach the same subject year after year.
mm-hmm,
And when I was teaching, I taught the same subject year after year, same grade levels year after
mm-hmm,
year. But here's
mm-hmm.
the thing, if we could have the same lesson, but we know every year students are different.
Yep.
And we talk about adapting to our current students.
Mm-hmm.
So how are you going to adapt to your current students, but don't adapt how you present the lesson?
And even with
It's
that, like my classroom, the environment, I took everything down at the end of the year.
mm,
And at the beginning of each year, as I introduce things, I put them up. And
yes,
I know, it's a time saving measure, to just to cover your boards and come in and it's ready made. But that's not how I teach,
yeah,
especially when you're teaching little kids, because they have
mm-hmm,
to know. Just imagine them coming into the classroom on the first day of school and all of this stuff is everywhere. It's pretty, but it's
mm-hmm.
overstimulus,
Oh my
because
gosh,
they don't
yes,
know where to
that's it.
find what's on the wall because there's so much stuff up. So you teach it and you walk over and put it on a wall where it's going to live temporarily, because you're adding new materials. And at some point, that has to come down and new material has to go up. But that's
Yes.
another whole conversation, classroom
Or
environment.
or at least cover it. I mean, if you're going to do the same thing and you know it's going to be the same
Yeah.
concepts, at least cover them and then
Yes.
uncover them, do your wheel of fortune and be like, boom, when you get there, I mean, do something. And one
Mm-hmm.
thing you said about overstimulating, it reminded me of a fifth grade teacher when I was a principal, and we were using champs for
Mm-hmm.
our classroom management thing. And so as part of our classroom management system, and for just by the way, as a side note, PBIS is a framework. It's not a system. People think, oh, we use PBIS. No, that's the framework, but it's your actual classroom management system. just
Mm-hmm.
just so people know.
Thanks for that. Points of clarification.
So we were using champs, and And of course, with champs, you have expectations for each activity when you're using it effectively. And so this teacher, it was decorated, her room was decorated nice, but her expectations were up on the whiteboard, with a magnet holding it, printed out in an 8.5 by 11 paper. So I said, listen, your room is decorated real nice, but how can the students know what the expectation is during independent work if they can't even see it? I'm like, how is that helping them? I told her, listen, don't slap nothing up there for compliance, because that ain't. I don't care about compliance. I care if it's being used effectively. So for the students, and so, but sometimes we get into that. We put things up in our classrooms for compliance, or coaches and leaders. We got to enforce compliance items. We got to move beyond the fact that somebody told us to do it and move it into, how do we use what they told us to do as a tool? How do I use this to my benefit? I don't want to have to keep explaining the expectation every single time. I mean, of course, you're going to remind them, but if I got this gigantic chart with pictures and everything else, it doesn't matter if they're a visual learner or not. You got that big old picture with some explanation. This is how you work independently. This is how you work in a small group. This is how you work in pairs. This is what I expect during direct instruction. Cool. Like when I was running my classes, listen, I didn't have an unrealistic expectation. I just told them this: when I'm talking, you don't, because I'm telling you something that's important because you need to know it. When I'm not talking, you can go ahead and talk. But if you louder than this music I'm playing, you too loud, lower your voice. And what I did was, my classroom, I kept instrumental piano music playing. For one, it stimulates the brain. And for two, a friend of mine recorded it, and he plays in a way, when you listen to him play, it just brings this sense of calmness and peace. So I'm like, listen, we not tripping up in here. And so I had that thing playing. I had it set at a good volume. If the kids knew if they would get too loud and they couldn't hear it, they knew to automatically. They would check themselves. You talking too loud. We can't hear the music. I mean, so they would check themselves, and they knew when I talked, they couldn't. And when I wasn't, they could. Because who can sit and be quiet all day long and not say nothing?
That's right.
Except for 20 minutes here, 20 minutes there. That's unrealistic. That's creating behavior problems. Because adults can't sit more than 30 minutes at a time without talking. And so you're trying to do that with a kid?
That's
who's
right.
probably talking all day long to their parents, and their parents are glad to send them to school.
So like, your kids, watch this. Watch this.
Right.
Hey, Mom, look at this. We're like, okay.
Exactly. So we can't create issues that are easily dealt with. But this goes back to servant leadership. Let me give these 10 things for somebody say we didn't give them the 10 things. But we're gonna give it to them, and then they can reach out to us later on how to apply it.
Okay, let's go. I'm writing them down too.
So the first one is listening. Because listening is interactive. It is not just hearing with your ears, and it's a learned discipline. So you have to listen first. And like Stephen Covey says, you listen to understand, not just hearing the words that are coming out of their mouth. But I also talk about how you have to listen intuitively, because some things are said without being said. And so you have to really listen to discern what's being said and what's behind what's being said.
I call it listening between the lines.
Yes, absolutely. And then the second one is empathy. Empathy is when you put yourself in a place of somebody else and see things from their perspective, their point of view. And so empathy is very important. Empathy is different from, oh, I understand you. It's like, I'm seeing your perspective. I feel what you feel. You get what I'm saying? And so the third one is healing. Now, I've never heard anybody say, I'm a servant leader, and talk about healing. Most people say they're a servant leader because they agree with everything people want. I'm like, no, that's not servant leadership, because you call yourself a servant leader. That doesn't make you one. I mean, it's good to speak faith-filled words, but you need to actually do some action to make
Hey,
that thing a
that's
reality.
right. That's right.
And so, but healing means to make whole, and it's about caring about the personal well-being of those you're leading,
Mm-hmm.
which is why I demonstrate that care beyond, their capacity of what
Mm-hmm.
they do in the job. Now I draw a very line. I keep a line drawn with that thing
Mm-hmm.
because you have to protect yourself so people don't take stuff the wrong way.
Yes.
And so, but I demonstrate that they mean more than the position.
Mm-hmm.
If somebody isn't feeling good, I'm compassionate. If I could see that they're having a rough day, I'm gonna be like, what can I do to help you? How can I support you?
Mm-hmm.
How can I make this environment one conducive where when you didn't trust school leadership before or coaches before because you got burned, how can I
Mm-hmm.
help you be healed from that trauma and help you recognize that was just them? That's not every
Mm-hmm.
coach or every principal, because some of these grown folks come with trauma because people have burnt them, taken advantage of
Yes.
them, used them,
Mm-hmm.
and done all kind of things.
Mm-hmm.
And some people bring trauma from their personal life all into the workplace.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And they judge you because of how you look, because you triggered something somebody did to
Yeah.
them.
Yeah. I've had
And
that.
so,
I've had that before. I was going in for a debrief after I had observed the lesson, and I could see the teacher was really not, this wasn't a day for her. And so she was just really frank and candid. She was like, Ms. Matthews, not today. And then she went on to tell me, this is going on at home. And I'm like,
mm,
okay, let me know when you're ready. So yeah,
yeah,
it's that. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
absolutely. And that's the thing about what I was saying about leadership, how people will lead and judge your leadership by their own perspective and experience.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it takes time to help them heal from the negative experience. But
Mm-hmm.
you do that by creating a positive one
Mm-hmm.
that replaces, that gives them a new frame of reference
Yeah.
that the old experience had. All right, this fourth one is called awareness. And it's basically when you are attuned and receptive to the physical, social, and political environment. You have to be aware. You have to be
Mm-hmm.
aware of the environment of what's going on with the parents, what's going on outside of your school and in your district. You got to be aware of what's going on with the teacher and the teachers union, if you have one, with the
Mm-hmm.
school board. You got to be aware of all of these things and how they impact the teacher performance,
Mm-hmm.
because sometimes teachers don't are pulled in the middle of stuff. And that's what I told you. I was in the hostile district one time, and it was a us against them mentality. A lot
Mm-hmm.
of those teachers were in the middle
Mm-hmm.
because the union president wanted to keep up confusion
Mm.
because she had friends on the school board
Yeah.
who didn't like the superintendent, and because they didn't like the superintendent, they didn't like none of administration, and so they were trying to use the union to file bogus grievances against
Mm-hmm.
everybody for everything. And some teachers didn't want to be in the middle of that. They
Yeah.
just wanted to come teach. And
Mm-hmm.
so, but you have to be aware of that so you can help. For one, you can navigate through it, but then two,
Mm-hmm.
you can help teachers see, look, this is help them focus on why
Mm-hmm.
they're really there.
Mm-hmm.
So you got to be aware. And then the next one is persuasion. That's number 5. Persuasion is not coercion, because coercion uses authority to force compliance.
Mm.
Persuasion is how you influence and convince people to do it willingly. Now,
Mm-hmm.
those active resistors that's going to resist anyway, you got to coerce. But
Mm-hmm.
everybody else, you persuade. You paint the
Mm-hmm.
picture of the end result and the
Mm.
why.
Yeah.
And then number 6, conceptualization, which is your ability as a leader to be a visionary for the school, and you provide a clear sense of direction. You go beyond the day to day and think about the big picture.
Mm-hmm.
And here's one example of that. When I went to this particular school that I've been referring to, I had a reputation for turnaround school before I got there. So I get to this school and I was like, okay, what's our goal? And I asked this in a building wide meeting on purpose. And at this time, I came in as the assistant principal. I wasn't even the principal, but the principal at that time, she's the bomb. She was no joke. And so and so they said, yeah, we're going to grow our students this year. And I said, by how much? It was like, I don't know. We're just going to grow them. And I was like, that's good. But here's what I did. I painted the picture. I said, we're going to grow them by a year and a half at minimum. 2 years is best within 1 year's time. I was like, and everything we're going to do is going to point back to that growth goal. When they are disrupting class, we're going to ask them, how is this helping you achieve your goal? Every assessment, because we introduced the data folders and all of that. Every assessment with the students tracking their own progress. How close are you to achieving your growth goal? Because now it's individualized, because it's based upon assessment data that you do that at the beginning of the year where you assess where they are. Yep. Some people use NWEA, some people use other stuff. Hey, so we got this data, and now we calculate 150% beyond that and say by the end of the school year, this is where you need to be. And yes, we're going to progress monitor you in the winter, and then we're going to fight against progress monitoring you every other week. We might add another one in like once, or every week we might add in every other week, but you know what I'm saying? So everything tied into that. And so what we did was in our newsletters that we sent home to parents, we had this tagline about growing kids 150%. And then all over the building, we had posters about growing 150%. Scrolling announcements in the office, the parents saw it. So everything talked about that very specifically, but we had to paint the picture. So it was beyond, I want you to pass this assessment, or I want you to master this one skill. It's, I want you to master every skill we teach you this year so you can grow by 150%. That means skills you're supposed to be introduced to this year and skills that you may have had a deficit in last year because you behind. It's like, we're going to hit all of these and we're going to make sure we do what it takes to help you learn it and master it. And so that's how you conceptualize, you paint the picture, and you got to know overall where this thing is going. You can't get trapped in a day-to-day, which is hard when you're coaching and teaching and leading a school, because the day-to-day seems to try to swallow you up.
Oh, whole, swallow you up whole.
Exactly. Oh, somebody trying to call me, my stuff on vibrate. So, hey, that's how you know this is live for real. And so, number 7 is foresight. Foresight encompasses the servant leader's ability to know the future, to predict what's coming based upon what's happening right now. Now, a lot of people are like, well, how are you supposed to know the future? If you're tracking trends and you're tracking what's happening, you can make an accurate prediction. Let me tell you one example of that. So several years ago, Ohio released their 5-year strategic plan, the ODE. And ODE was talking about, they had this big emphasis, like everybody, on literacy, the science of reading, social emotional development. And so they had a representative from the support team come to our district and our school and was talking about, here are some suggested standards for social emotional learning. Because at that time, during a morning meeting, we were implementing social emotional learning during morning meeting time, because we had every grade level did morning meeting. This was a K-6 building, so everybody did morning meeting, but they did it different times. They did it based on what was best for their particular grade level, and that was decided by their grade level team. I wasn't the dude trying to mandate everybody doing morning meeting at 9 o'clock. Nah, because it might not work for everybody. So whatever time it worked is like, as long as we're getting it done, cool. And so we had things we talked about for social emotional learning and all of that. And so the ODE rep came and gave us what she said were suggestions, standards from ODE about social emotional learning. And so she did her spiel, said what she had to say. And I told my team, I said, listen, we're going to work towards implementing these immediately. We're going to learn them. We're going to start implementing them. And this is going to be our standard of practice. And then I told them, and I said something that they didn't get, but they found out was true later. And I don't know if this was the pastor prophet in me or what. I said, listen, by next year, this is going to be a mandate. So we might as well get used to it now and get it worked into our schedule. And any questions we have or any concerns, work that out before it becomes a mandate and it's going to be pushed on us. And so my teacher was like, well, she didn't say it was a mandate. She just said it was a suggestion. I said, when do you know the Department of Education to make a suggestion?
Right.
when have you ever heard of that?
That was the soft launch.
Right. They don't make suggestions. And then the ODE representative was like, no, we're not going to push this on the schools. We just want to help improve. So, with social emotional, help improve the well-being of the students, gave the spiel. And I was like, thank you very much. And as soon as she left, I said, listen, I was like, as sure as my name is Jamal, this is what's going to happen. And so we're not caught off guard. This is what we need to do. And so some of them didn't believe me. Some of them were reluctant. And so some were like convinced, like, yeah, okay. And others had to be coerced.
Yeah.
But we did it. And guess what? By the next school year, it was a mandate. Ohio was like, these are the state standards for social emotional learning. By the next year. And this was given to us in January. So we got it mid-year. By August.
Yeah.
By August, it was a mandate. So, in schools, that's what happens. They give a suggestion, and then 30 days later, it's a mandate. And so they don't give you time to roll nothing out. And so it was that foresight, because for me, even though they didn't want to put the extra effort into learning these standards now and creating lessons based upon these standards, they thought they could just have free willy conversations about emotion, which worked for them. But now we got to tie those free willy conversations into these standards because
that's right.
Because it's going to be mandated. But I served them by helping them prepare for something that was mandated so they didn't feel the pressure or stress trying to implement it day one of a new school year without having seen them before. Because unfortunately, like I said, sometimes ideas are generated in one meeting and then they're expected to roll out 30 days later.
Yeah.
Which is not realistic, because it's not realistic when you're leading a school. It's not realistic for teachers to try to implement something new and introduce it to their students, because one, they got to get used to it. And then now they got to get the students used to it. And so a lot of times these last minute rollouts come from people, no offense to anybody, but come from people who have never had a leadership position in a school. And
unfortunately, it happens way too much.
Yes, they come right out of school and go to district admin, and they have no idea of what it's like to roll something out to kids and to grown folks.
And to families, families have to be involved in this. And so when you're given a 30-day notice, you're working really behind what they say, the 8 ball. Like this is something that you just conceived and, let's do it. Never taking any of these other factors into consideration.
Yes. And so, and that's part of the challenge and the stress that teachers feel. And so as a servant leader, we try to minimize that as much as we can. And we have to then advocate, speaking truth. Hey, this rollout is a good idea, but this time frame is not. We can't change our progress monitoring thing, after we just did the fall progress monitoring. And then all of a sudden they go from us learning the system to rolling it out in 90 days. That can't happen. It's not like they can sit and work on it and practice it every day, because they're engaging in instruction.
That's right.
And actually assessing student performance and providing academic intervention, making lesson plan. And then hopefully going home to spend time with their family and not working 12-hour days.
That's right.
I mean,
That's right.
So part of that foresight is really helping them and protecting them from what I identify as foolishness.
You sound like one of my other favorite administrators. He used to say that. What is this foolishness? He used to say that all the time.
So I had teachers that would smile and laugh at me when I would be like, "What is this?" They'd be like, "Foolishness." And so the number 8 is stewardship. So I know we're past our time. Stewardship. Now, stewardship is about taking responsibility for the leadership role. You
Hmm.
have to accept responsibility for being the leader and
Hmm.
recognizing that leadership is not really about being title driven, it's influence driven. And
Mm.
you have to own stuff that ain't your fault.
Ooh.
Even though you hold people accountable for their performance, you have to own their performance.
Mm-hmm. Mm.
When they perform well, you got to give them all the credit and take none. When they don't perform well, you got to take all the heat and give them none.
Ooh, that's a good quote I'm gonna put on Instagram
Because
one day.
you have to take that heat for them, then work with them to help them grow.
Mm.
Because here's the thing about leadership that people don't understand. They think it's very glamorous, but it's not as glamorous as it appears to be.
Mm-hmm.
Because here's the thing, teachers have the responsibility and the privilege of growing behind closed doors.
Mm-hmm.
They
Mm-hmm.
grow with you in coaching sessions and
Mm-hmm.
PD, and you serve them and you help them grow, you nurture them, and you keep their thoughts private
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
unless they're actually obvious and the whole building can see it. But still,
Yeah.
you grow
Mm-hmm.
in front of everybody, in front of the teachers, in front of the
Mm-hmm.
families, in front of the school board, in front of the superintendent, in front of the district admin, in front of everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And your faults getting zero grace.
Mm.
You're expected to be 100 day one.
Mm-hmm.
And so servant leadership understands that dichotomy and
Yes.
says, listen, I'm going to protect. I don't want to sound like the police protect and serve, but I'm going to protect this teacher whom I
Yes.
know has potential to grow.
Mm-hmm.
I know this teacher has potential to grow. Especially the first through third year teachers, it's like
Yeah.
they're babies. It's like, listen, I gotta help you step into who you are as a
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
teacher. I gotta help you find your identity and your rhythm as a teacher.
Mm-hmm.
You're thinking about curriculum tools, but you don't even know who you are as a teacher. You don't
Yeah.
know if you should try to be that mean, super strict teacher or the super nice teacher. You're trying to figure it out. One week you're mean, next week you're nice.
She's still trying to get that identity piece together.
Yeah. And sometimes as coaches, we try to find that identity piece. And
Mm-hmm.
as school leaders,
Oftentimes, yeah.
yes.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the first thing I say you need to do as leaders, find your identity.
Mm-hmm.
And it cannot be shaped by the latest fads of leadership because leadership styles or leadership expressions, as I call them, are tools.
Mm-hmm.
When you know who you are as a leader, then you know which tool works for you.
Mm-hmm.
And then you know, based upon the setting, what tool you need to not use and what tool you need to use. They call that
Mm-hmm.
situational leadership, where you
Mm-hmm.
can adapt for the environment and the situation while maintaining your identity and who you are. Because if you're moved by every fad and by every principal or coach you see doing something great and you start trying to do what they do, there's never any consistency in who you are. And guess what? Inconsistency in who you are causes people not to trust you.
And you lose your authenticity too.
Yes, you lose yourself and
Yeah.
people don't
Uh-huh.
trust you.
Mm-hmm.
And trust is one of the number one currencies of leadership. Remember, it's
Mm-hmm.
built but not earned. So the next one is commitment to the growth of the people, which we kind of covered with the other ones. You got to be committed to growing the people that you are leading. And then the last one is building community. Now, I've never heard anybody talk about building community in terms of servant leadership.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
I feel that building community is essential.
Yeah.
My mentor said that right now, the way culture is, it is highly important that we build community and stay in it
Mm-hmm. That,
because there's
yeah,
so
because the
much going on.
community, and I'm sorry to cut you off, community promotes belonging.
Yes,
And it's so important that people have a space where they feel like they belong and
yes,
have a voice and not feel that they will be ostracized or some punitive action will be taken because they've expressed their voice in this community. So, absolutely.
Yes. And feel safe to be different.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And so building community goes beyond building one classroom culture.
Mm-hmm.
See, building community starts with, as the leader, how do you build community within the adults in the building?
Mm-hmm.
How do I build community with these grade level teams? And then how do I help the grade level teams to build community with each other so it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't become cliquish?
Yep.
And then, because when you can build community with them and they know they're appreciated, they know they belong, they know it's okay to have their quirks and their differences,
Mm-hmm.
and it's okay to have areas of improvement, that even though you have to I mean, most coaches don't evaluate, but
Mm-mm.
even as a principal, if you have to be there, if you're evaluating them, they still know it's okay to
Mm-hmm.
have a fault,
Mm-hmm.
and not try to hide the fault because they don't want it to show up on the evaluation.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? So you
Mm-hmm.
got to help them be okay with that and to build community. And when they experience it, they can effectively build it with students. But see, there's this leadership concept that says you reproduce what you are,
Mm-hmm.
not what you desire to produce.
Mm-hmm.
And so some teachers struggle with building community in the classroom because they have no sense of community themselves around
Mm-hmm.
their team in the building.
Mm. Yeah. That's something to really think about. I hadn't thought about it that way, but that's so true. Now that you've said it, and I'm thinking about situations. That's true.
Mhm. Yeah. And so these are the behaviors of servant leadership. And most of the time when I teach this at conferences, I get to like two or three of them. I never get to list all 10. So the people listening today got a bonus. And so, but these are the things. And when people say, I'm a servant leader, are you embodying these characteristics?
Mm-hmm.
Are you
Mm-hmm.
actively embodying them and implementing them in your leadership expression?
This list right here, I'm going to keep in my back pocket because, you've lifelong learner. I've learned a few additional things about servant leadership from tonight's talk. And as I'm looking at this list, and as you were going through and giving those examples, it was putting me in the mind of administrators that I've worked for. And I could truly say, and I've called them servant leaders based on my definition at that time. And with you listing these things, they were truly servant leaders.
That's
I
good.
can think of one of my supervisors when I was working in district office. He's currently the executive director of mathematics. So if he's listening to this, I'm talking about you, Tony. But he's the person for his people.
Yes.
He showed empathy. He was absorbing a lot of things coming down from the top that we never knew about because he was
Mhm.
protecting us.
Yeah.
And just the vision of the Department of Mathematics, the Office of Mathematics. I mean, all of these things that you listed, that was him. And this is the person at the beginning of this podcast. I said I had a servant leader. He was the one I was talking about because
That's good.
he's exemplified every one of these points that you laid out. Every one of them. Building
That's
community.
awesome.
I'm an elementary focused person. I could do K-12, ELA, and other subjects, but mathematics, I'm staying down here in the elementary. I know my lane. But he made it the environment so that everyone was honored and valued, and he valued everyone's expertise, whatever they brought to the table. And so, just working, if you have not had an opportunity to work under someone like that, once you work under a servant leader, your perspective changes on everything because you have a new set of lenses to look through to be more empathetic, but not to be a pushover at the same time. So
Yes.
it's a lot of things here, a lot of give and take, a lot of points that I think all of this is beneficial for instructional coaches. If you're listening, this right here is definitely beneficial for what you do because you Although you're not a building administrator, you are in a leadership role where you have to deal with the dynamics of different personalities and the baggage that people are bringing into the work life and professional struggles that they may be dealing with on the job. And so when you're talking about this servant leadership piece, this is it right here. So you might want to go back and look at this again and write this down if you didn't the first time. And I was in Jamal's session and he only got to the first three. So I was happy that I could that I could get the other seven tonight. So yes, this is dynamic. I love this.
Yeah, and last thing I want to say to all the coaches listening, remember you are a leader.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to have administrator on your title
Mm-hmm.
or be an evaluator or have the next certification to be able to evaluate. You're a leader by not just by natural function, but by the fact that you have influence in the building. And
Mm-hmm.
so think of yourself as a leader, carry yourself as a leader, and embody these principles because it's going to make you a better coach. It's going to make you a better leader. It's going to make your team better
Mm-hmm.
because the better you lead as a servant leader, the better the people whom you are leading will be. And the
Mm-hmm.
better they are, the better the students. Because the benefits you have is not being their evaluator. They will be
Mm-hmm.
more open and transparent with you instead of trying to hide things.
Mm-hmm.
And so you can allow that transparency to really provide opportunities for some very impactful and meaningful coaching. So take advantage of your leadership position and
Mm-hmm.
take advantage of the fact that, when people choose to follow you, let them choose to follow you. And those who choose not to follow you, you don't, let your administrator deal with those who choose not to follow you.
Yes.
And so do what you do and be great at it. And that's all I can say about that. Go be
Yes,
great.
and we always talk about, we're here to support and serve, and here we go, 10 points
Yeah.
to help you serve. So
Yeah.
I love this. I know we are so over time, but since we're over time, we may as well do this one more thing. We
Listen,
may
go
as
to
well
get
do
these
this
bonus
one more
minutes in.
thing.
Yes.
Let's have fun. Not that we weren't having fun before, but let's have some more fun. And we're going to do a lightning round. So I have 5 questions for you, sir.
Okay.
And just let us know what you're thinking about these 5 questions. Question number one, the coaching or leadership phrase you say way too much. What is that coaching or leadership phrase you say way too much?
Wow. I got two of them. One,
Let's
I,
hear them both.
one, I say I'm an igniter. And I
Mm-hmm.
say that way too much because my focus is on igniting passion into
Mm-hmm.
others. But then I said it earlier, this is foolishness. Because when something when something is mandated that doesn't make sense and should be a part of our educational world, I'd be like, this is foolishness.
I love that. Number two, one thing you wish every leader knew about coaching.
That it's a process.
Okay.
And coaching is a process, and you can't force people to grow.
Mm,
You can only provide opportunities and you can help them decide to take the opportunity, but you
hmm.
can't make it happen.
Yes. Number three, one word that describes your leadership style other than
Other than ignite, other than ignite, man, and I don't be stereotypical and say servant. I would say
Mhm.
transformational
Okay.
because my lane I know is to help bring transformation.
Hmm.
So I would say transformational.
Okay. If leadership had an emoji, which one would you choose?
Fired.
I knew it. And are you an early bird culture leader or a night owl strategist?
Early bird.
Okay.
No matter what time I go to sleep, I'm up early regardless. And yeah, my wife will be
Wow.
the night owl. I'm the early bird.
Okay. I'm definitely the night owl. Uh, I get ignited about after midnight, and then I can't go to sleep.
See, see, I get ignited at like 6:30 in the morning, 7 in
Uh-huh.
the morning, and I'm like, I'm in the zone. But the
Mm-hmm.
later it gets, it's like, listen, you can't talk to me about nothing serious after a certain time because it's just not gonna work.
I tell my husband that all the time. I'm like, what are the important things that you want me to do in the day? Because if you wait until the nighttime, my brain is not there. I
Mhm.
might have my laptop out surfing the internet, but it's nothing of substance. It's all light stuff. Like, ooh, what did so and so wear today?
Right, exactly.
That's about the extent of it. So with that, I so appreciate you being here. We're gonna have to do a part two because this was just really good information and things that I think every coach and leader needs to hear, especially going into the new school year. So I'm going to have you back on because I so enjoy this conversation. And if there's one more thing that you could leave with the audience, the listeners tonight, what's that one more thing you would leave?
Hey, just go change. I say every week, or we say every week in my pastoral capacity,
Mm-hmm.
go change the world. And
Mm-hmm.
so I would say something similar to the teachers and the coaches listening. Go change your district.
Mm-hmm.
Don't allow the circumstances, the climate, the lack of resources, or the abundance of resources
Mm-hmm.
stop you doing what you know you're supposed to do.
Mm-hmm.
Go make that change
Mm-hmm.
because you can do it. That's why you're there.
And that's it. So how can they get in touch with you, stay in touch with you, follow you?
Yes. They can follow me on all the socials. I'm on X, but I don't post a lot on X. But they
Mm-hmm.
can follow me on all the socials, just searching my name, Jamal Maxim. They can get on my website, jamalmaxim.org. And yeah, just stay in touch with me.
Thank you much. And I just wanted to give this plug to another one of my friends who your messages really align. Her name is Lasita Walker, and she has a new podcast, The Joy-Filled Educator. So if you're
Yes.
ever in a place where you're feeling that, okay, I need more of something. Of course, always follow Jamal because he's so inspirational and motivational. And also check into Lucita Walker's The Joy-Filled Educator podcast. She has some good stuff over there for you too. So that's it this evening. Thank you so much for joining us. If you did not capture these notes live, definitely go back and look at this again so that you can have this in your pocket. I know a lot of us have started back school, but many of us have not. So even if we're still at the beginning. Write these things down. As a coach, I think this is a perfect guideline or some guidelines for you to follow to be able to be that servant leader in helping support all you support in your school districts or campuses. So until next time, go out and continue to be the courageous coach and leader I know you are, and I'll talk to you later. See you later.
Bye bye.